Okay, so here's the deal. Just give me one cut after I explain what I'm about to explain, and then there shouldn't be another cut until near the end of this video. The reason being, I'm exhausted, I don't want to edit this more than I have to, and I want to sleep. Not to mention I'm hurting, considering the fact that there was no video last game, which I didn't want to cover anyway, so I'm very glad for one thing there. I fell out of the chair because I was rightfully angry with the other team, and I dislocated my hip, which I'm 20 years old, that should not be a thing. Now, I may have lied about that because I don't have a good history when it comes to one takes. I'm very bad for either pausing or saying the wrong thing. It's really great. YOTES lose against the Minnesota Wild 4-1 in a very close game up until the end of the game. So let's get into it. Period 1, there's a goal scored by Kaprizov. He's got it at the point. He takes a shot. It goes into the back of the net. We continue on in the period for a bit, and then we get into period 2 where Bukestad scores. So that's great. That's fun to see. But it doesn't matter because the Wild will tie it up. Yeah, no, they won't even tie it up. We tied it up. They'll break the tie, Tim. You're doing a one take. Come on here, bud. They'll break the tie when Hartman scores. After not being able to score on Vejmelka just a little bit ago, he tries to put it in. Vejmelka kicks out the pad, and Hartman can't put the puck in, but instead he'll put it in later. Then we get into the third period, and there's 2 empty net goals. Do I even have to cover them, other than the fact that both of them were from their own end of the ice? So that's the game. That's the way it ends. That's the way the news goes. Add to that, real quick, goaltenders played their hearts out. 2 of the Wild's 4 goals were scored on empty nets, which means that Vejmelka wasn't there. We pulled a goalie with 5 minutes to go in the period. It's not great. And, what else am I missing? I'm missing quite a bit, aren't I? Oh, yeah, the refs, which were a huge problem in the Chicago game, which I didn't get to cover because, again, my hip dislocated, which is not fun. The refs drive me absolutely insane. In this game, there was a play that was made. There was a penalty that was called early on in the game where right after Keller had gotten tripped up and there was no call, we got called for something that was, it was a penalty, admittedly. It was a light one, but it was a penalty nonetheless if they want to be consistent. But they weren't consistent because they let something slide on Keller not 2 minutes ago. And then you have another situation where there was a hooking call on the Coyotes where the hooked player on the Wild kind of pinches in on the stick, kind of drawing out the hook just a bit so that the ref can kind of see that, oh yeah, it's definitely a hook. Now here's the thing, the player that was doing the hook really had no control of the hook at all because he was pulled down and in this really weird angle where he kind of falls awkwardly to the point where he's not even really hooking anymore. There's no force into the hook. And it's not good, it's terrible, it's awful, the refs suck, they should be held accountable. But guess what? The NHL doesn't give a damn, so we're never going to get that. Minnesota's been, they've been very much covered in the hockey news world lately because their last game, which I believe happened on Sunday, if I'm not mistaken, they ended up doing something stupid, which ended up working out for them, which means it's not stupid. They pulled their goaltender, Marc-Andre Fleury, in overtime to get a point up on Nashville, which, by the way, is a really dangerous thing to do because when you pull your goaltender in overtime, you are potentially forfeiting your loser point, is what I'm going to call it. If the other team scores on your empty net, you forfeit that point. It's like they won in regulation. So they made a stupid move. It worked out in their favor, and They score the game-winning goal, they win, they come and face us and blow us out of the park with 2 empty net goals because we pulled our goaltender in the last 5 minutes of the game and then pulled them again thinking that would work a second time. And guess what? No, it didn't. By the way, that second goal was kind of funny. It was bouncing all over the place as it went into the net. I was kind of hoping that it would do what a puck does normally when you want it to go into an empty net and go the completely other direction. There was another thing in regards to the penalties, because I'm jumping around a lot because I want to do this in one take. Everything's kind of coming at me as I'm thinking. There was another situation where the Coyotes went down a man. because they went up a man too many on the ice in play at the same time. You're only allowed 5, but you end up with a 6. That's a penalty. Not allowed to do that. We stole that from Toronto for some reason, and now we're tied with Vancouver for most too many men penalties in the league right now for the course of the season with 11. 11 too many men penalties, and it's going to drive me absolutely nuts because that's dumb. It's one thing if you make a mistake, like, oh, you're trying to defend the puck and it's not working your way and you like trip up the guy because it happens. But it's another when you can't count. And I'm sorry, I knew how to count to 5 when I was, 4? I was 1 year off of 5 when I knew how to count to 5. And these are grown-ass men going out and playing the game of hockey for money, for big money that I don't get, and I can count to 5, and they can't count to 5. So, that's it for the game. That's me covered the game. I've covered the game. The game is now covered. Going into the rest of the season, we're not making the playoffs. It's pretty obvious at this point. I kind of looked at the playoff picture before the game started. We are sitting at less than 1% to make it into the playoffs, and then we lost the game, so I think that kind of writes us off. We were pretty well written off to begin with, but it's fine. So, closing out the season, I would, in a perfect world, I would love to see a message being sent, but I know it's not going to happen because you kind of just want to rest up in preparation for next season. I'm still pretty sure that the Coyotes are going to be buyers in the off-season. I think they were kind of sellers right now to get the cap space to deal with buying in the summer when things like trades and, what's the term for when you're, not waivers, but free agent, that's the word. Things like that. You've got the cap space now that in the off-season you can mess around with that. So, that's what I think is going to happen. Rest of the season is basically a washout, but I'm still going to cover him because I'm a Yotes fan and I like to torture myself, and it kind of sucks. But at the same time, I couldn't ask for anything better. So, in regards to the playoffs, when that finally does come around, I'm not going to do a prediction until we know who's in the playoffs, but I've got some thoughts. So that'll be coming out whenever the NHL figures out how that's going to work. I'll still follow the Coyotes. I've already mentioned that, but I'm going to mention it again. I'm going to follow them. I'm going to try not to dislocate my hip anymore so that I don't have to miss videos. Because, again, like, it's a good excuse to not talk about Chicago. That game, that was stupid. But it's also not good in terms of scheduling. Because on YouTube, you got to schedule stuff. So it's kind of fun. What else? What else was there that I was going to say? Oh, yeah. When it comes to the playoffs, I will be following a team per round. And it'll basically be, hey, look, I'm on the bandwagon. Until this team loses, I'm with them on the bandwagon. And that's probably going to mean, knowing my luck, that I'm going to be following 4 different teams. And the team that I pick in the Stanley Cup Finals isn't winning the Stanley Cup, but it's fine. So, likely what's going to happen if the Oilers stay on the track is I'm going to start, for sure, with the Edmonton Oilers because they are my childhood team. I cheer for the Yotes now. I used to cheer for the Oilers because of my grandfather. I cheer for the Yotes now because of Shane Doan. It's a whole story. I'll make a video at some point about that. But in the meantime, there's another game coming up at some point. I think it's against Detroit. It should be coming up in 2 days. I'm just going to double check that because if I don't, I'm going to look like an idiot, which, I already kind of do sometimes. Today's definitely one of them. 2 days from now, we play Detroit. So in the meantime, stay howling, go Yotes. And if you liked what you saw, you can hit the like button. And if you didn't like what you saw, you can hit the dislike button. That's what it's there for. If you want to see more of this kind of stuff, good luck because I don't do this often. And I don't think I'll do it again for quite a while. But you can hit the red button if you want to see me get angry throughout the rest of the season. Because I don't think the Yotes are going to do what I want to see. And you can also share this with your friends. To see someone basically pretend that he's a rapper when it comes to hockey. It's not actually the case, but it's fine. We can all pretend sometimes. So, that's it. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.